Hi, I'm Joy,
Hi, I'm Andrew.
and welcome to the Joyfully Golden podcast. All right, so today we're going to be talking about a slightly heavy topic, but we believe, a very important topic. And so today we're talking about forgiveness.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about what you think about when you hear the word forgiveness.
When I hear the word forgiveness, what I think about is usually the classic, I'm sorry for, and then the other person is, I forgive you for what it is that you're forgiving them from. A lot of, we learn how to say we're sorry and apologize when we're children because when you're growing up, you'll learn that there are certain things that you shouldn't do, and sometimes your actions can hurt other people. So it's a good practice to seek forgiveness for the things that you've done.
Absolutely.
And then there's this other part about it that I don't think is maybe as talked about as a lot when we're children, but more so when we're adults. And it would be actually interesting to see it be learned when we're younger, but forgiving ourselves when we make mistakes. So I think about forgiveness, I think about it in two ways, forgiving others and forgiving yourself.
That's good. That's really good.
Which one do you think's the harder one?
I honestly think it depends because I can think back in my life personally in times in which I had to forgive someone and it was the hardest thing in the world to do, and I can also think of times in which I had to forgive myself and it was the hardest thing in the world. So I don't think it's at least the way I look at it. I don't think there is one that's necessarily easier. I just think that there is one that is easier to hide, if anything. Because I think when you're angry at someone or you want to get back at someone, it's a lot harder to hide that versus when you're dealing with yourself. Nobody can know. You can go an entire life blaming yourself for things that just pile up on your heart and on your mind, and no one will ever know because it's with you. So I think definitely there's one that's easier to hide, which maybe makes it a little more difficult to address because unless you realize that you have to, or someone helps you realize that you have to address forgiving yourself, you never really have to confront it because it's kind of like in the backside. Nobody has to see it. It's kind of like in the corner. So that's how I look at it. But before we move forward, I always love talking about why the topics that we discuss are important, so that the audience can really lock in and understand why we talk about them. And so when it comes to forgiveness, and I want to hear your take on this too, I genuinely believe that unforgiveness is one of the reasons why a lot of people fail to enjoy a higher level of peace in their life. And again, speaking from experience of having had to struggle with forgiveness, and maybe I'm going to share the story later on in the episode, it's very hard to just enjoy life to the fullest when you're holding on to a grudge against someone or against yourself. And it doesn't even matter because that's the thing. Like the grudge can be justified. You can have the right to be like genuinely angry at this person, but the thing is, forgiveness is for you, not for someone else. And I think that's why it's important. It's because forgiving frees you. It has nothing to do with the other person, and that is, to me, the part that sucks. Because you when you're really angry with someone, you want them to feel it. You want them to almost know that you're angry. You want us to almost be hurt because you were hurt by whatever they did or whatever you did to yourself. But the sad truth is that they don't feel it. The sad truth is that they're not waking up in the middle of the night by it. The sad truth is like they don't lose their appetite because of it. The sad truth is that their health is not affected because of it. It's all on you. Like those negative feelings just fester in your heart and they just keep hurting you over and over again. I had a quote that once said that refusing to forgive someone and thinking that they're getting hurt by it, it's almost like drinking poison and hoping that someone else dies from it. And like and again, it's hard because like when you're not forgiving someone, it could be very justified, but the truth is that your well-being is way too important to allow unforgiveness of someone else to keep you away from being healthy, to keep you away from being happy, to keep you away from being fulfilled, and to move forward in life, you know. And so that's one of the reasons why I think it's really important to talk about this topic. And I hope a lot of people listening can really relate to the struggle, you know, that it is to reach that point of forgiving others or ourselves. And so let me how about for you, when you think about it, what makes it land home as far as this is why it's important to me, you know, to talk about this.
So I really liked when you talked about the justifiable anger or frustration when you don't want to forgive somebody. And I think, so there's two things, like justice, vengeance, revenge. So three things. And forgiveness is always the right answer. There are things that people will do to another person, to a group, to a community, family members, people they don't even know, that can be unforgivable acts. And we'll hear it. Well, it is. Oh, this was an unforgivable thing. This was just so wrong or unjust or hated towards it, like intent on, I'm going to do this because they're this way. And it's horrible and it's terrible. And it will make you want to get revenge, or it'll make you want to seek vengeance for the actions, or to bring people to justice. You know, we have a justice system that when people do things wrong, we hold them accountable. But when we're talking about forgiveness, it's not like, oh, let's just go let these people just go wild and crazy, and then, oh, no, it's okay, let's forgive them. It's like, no, you know, we have things in place to protect people, so that's good. But when we're talking about forgiveness, it's about knowing that, because you said it doesn't hurt the other person. They're not hurt when they hurt you. They may have been hurting and that caused them to hurt you, but the hurt that you now feel won't affect them unless you act on it. And if you act towards them in a negative way for the pain you feel, what have we talked about? Positivity spreads positivity. Absolutely. Negativity just brings more negativity. Yeah. So we have to learn that we have to forgive other people, even when they treat us the wrong way. Because the golden rule is treat other people the way you want to be treated, not how they deserve to be treated. And at the end of the day, you go to sleep and your thoughts, your heart, that's what you feel when you go to bed. I heard this story this morning on my way over here, and they said you wouldn't let a robber come into your home and live rent-free. So why would you let this negativity come into your heart and stay there?
That's good.
Because there's the negativity, anger, frustration, all these things that come when we're unable to forgive.
Absolutely.
Is a poison, like you said, that literally, and I love that, drinking poison and hoping the other person dies. It's like, but you're only hurting yourself. And I think sometimes people don't know what wrongs they've caused other people. And it's like, okay, well, how can you know? Because you don't. So you can decide, well, is this something that I need to tell them, hey, this was wrong, this is how I feel, and apologize? Because then if they don't give you what you're hoping for by opening up to them, then what? If you're going to say, like, okay, say you did something to upset me, and I'm like, all right, Joy, I'm upset because you did this, and I'm thinking he's going to apologize, we're going to be cool, we'll move over, and you're like, yeah, sorry I feel that way, Andrew, but that's not what I meant, okay. And I'm like, but that's not what I wanted. You didn't give me the thing I want, and now I can't forgive you, and now I'm holding on, and now I feel dumb because I brought it up. So when we think about forgiveness, it's about letting it go, about accepting that what happened is in the past, and that we forgive people because we're human. We make mistakes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And each of us will be, the judge of to what extent what is being forgiven based on what action. But as a general principle, I think it's important when people wrong us in our lives to not take it personally, because it almost always never is. And then to not have that hold space in our hearts, because that only just hurts us moving forward.
That's really good. And I want to add something to that too. And before we move into, because I want us to really talk about also forgiving ourselves. But before moving into that, I really want to address something very real that I think needs to be talked about if we talk about forgiveness, is the pain. And so we're not trying to sit here and tell people that forgiving is easy and tell you that you should ignore the pain of actually being hurt by someone else. That's not what we're trying to do. If you feel the pain, you do need to grieve. You do need to feel it. If you need to go to therapy, if you need to process the pain, that's a part of the human journey. You can't just pretend that you're not feeling the pain. That's not what we're talking about. But what we're saying is you cannot allow that pain to keep you captive to a negative way of thinking, to negative emotions for the rest of your life. And the reason why, it's because you're worth more than that. You deserve better than that. And so I really want people to hear this out, like the pain that you might have felt that someone has caused you. If it's real, deal with it. If it's real, cry from it. If it's real, talk with people about it, process it. But make sure that once you're done processing it, once you're done grieving, that you do the best thing that you need to do with trash, which is throw it away. And the crazy thing is that when you think even of the concept of trash, is that things are not made to be trash. They become trash. In other words, you use them, and then when you're not using them, you throw them away. Same thing. Those painful emotions, those negative emotions, we hear it all the time. People who had dramatic experiences, very hurtful experiences that eventually ends up helping them down the line. It's because they used it and then they let it go. It's because they dealt with it and then they let it go. They felt it and then they let it go. Because if you hold on to it, if you hold on to the negativity from it and remain angry, remain in just this dark place, it's only gonna hurt you. So I really, before we move forward, really just want to accentuate that point, of the pain of it is real, and we know it, we understand it, but at the same time, make sure that once you've dealt with it, that you don't decide to keep it on your back the rest of your life, because you have too much to live for to allow that to happen. There's too much beauty, too much healing, too much life ahead of you, to give yourself completely to something that someone did. Because no matter who that person is, they are not worth it. They are not worth you being unhappy, you being restless, you being hurt for the rest of your life. They are not worth it. So do not give them the opportunity, to have that kind of power over you. And so, I just want to,
And that's the perfect segue into forgiving yourself, because you nailed it when you talked about getting rid of it. It's like we'll use the injustices in our lives to propel us forward to do better. And at a point, you also will have to forgive yourself in that process, because there's what they've done to me that I must forgive, and then what I've done to myself or allowed myself to, either, if it's even holding on to some pain for a really long time, forgive yourself for holding on to it longer than maybe you needed to, so that you can let it go. Because when we talk about self-forgiveness, to me, that means that there are things that I have done that could have been done better, or that have hurt other people, for example, right? And if I am to be able to be the best that I can be moving forward, I have to let that go. Not repeat the behavior, because we're not talking about, now it's just like, okay, I could go and do this again, because we don't want to do it. You don't want to make the same mistakes again. You don't want to do the wrong actions again, but you want to allow yourself to be free from it, so that it doesn't affect your ability to move forward.
Wow, that's good. That's really good. And I think for me personally too, something that helps me, because again, I've dealt personally with having to forgive myself, and as I'm sure most people have in a lifetime. I think one of the unspoken truth about refusing to forgive yourself, or refusing to allow yourself that grace to fail at times, it's almost like it could be sometimes an ego trip. And in my case, it was. It's almost like this. this belief when someone else hurts me, it's okay. They're allowed to fail because they're not perfect human. But then when it's myself, there's almost this other standard of like, I cannot fail because I'm so good or I'm so perfect. How could I, you know? And the reality is that you're going to have to forgive yourself many more times moving forward. You're going to do things that you're going to regret. You're going to do things you're going to look back and be, I could have been much smarter there. I could have been much more compassionate there. I could have been much more wiser there. You know, that's just life. But the reality is that in the same way in which everyone around you is not perfect and people might hurt you without wanting to, guess what? You are not perfect. And you might end up disappointing yourself and hurting yourself voluntarily or involuntarily. That's just life. But make sure that the same grace you exercise when you extend it to other people and you decide to let go, you know, of that poison, it hurts you just as much if you hold on to yourself hurting yourself, you know. So just make sure that you understand that you are not perfect. And so give yourself a little bit of grace. And again, like, we're not saying keep repeating the behavior or like never grow, never change. That's not the point here. But the other side of that truth is that unless you forgive yourself, you cannot move forward either. You cannot grow either. Because there's actually studies that have been made that people that wallow in guilt and self-defeating emotions like that tend to repeat the same behaviors that they actually want to stop. But like, once you're able to move from that place of gift, to let go, to forgive yourself, there is an empowerment that comes with that grace that you show to yourself that actually moves you in the right direction, you know, away from the behavior that is actually not beneficial for you, you know. So in other words, just don't allow yourself to wallow in that ego trip of, you know, just understand that the same way in which other people are broken and they will hurt you without meaning it, and you have to let that go and not hold on to that. Don't hold on to what you do to yourself either. Show that same grace and love to yourself and forgive yourself. Let free yourself, you know, of that negative emotion, because there's too much beauty, too much life ahead of you for you to remain trapped to that.
Love it. And if we are to give this advice to other people, it only makes sense that we apply it to ourselves.
Absolutely.
In the same way that you would tell your child that, hey, you did this to your friend, you need to say, I'm sorry, you should, you know, or they did that to you, but you should forgive them because they made a mistake. Do that for yourself. Like, we treat ourselves so differently in a way because it's easier to interact with other people, I think, because at the end of the day, they're not you. They don't know you like you know you. People say, well, I know. It's like, you only know you. Like, I only know me. I know me the best because I am me.
That's good.
So I know every little thing I've done, good or bad. So it is so important that when we're talking about this self-forgiveness, that you know that you're going to make mistakes for the rest of your life. So you might as well forgive yourself and grant yourself the permission to do so.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So forgive others, forgive yourself. Treat other people the way you want to be treated.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. That's really good.
And as always, stay joyfully golden.
See you next time.